This is the Brewers POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Milwaukee Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
17 hits, 10 runs, another statement series win for our Milwaukee Brewers, this time in Seattle. We'll talk about Quinn Priester shoving for 7 strong innings and the Brewers bats. We used the term a couple of days ago to describe this team, but they were relentless as they have been throughout the course of the last 2 months. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Locked On Brewers postcast. My name is Brandon Snyder. You can follow me on X at Brandon_Snyder and follow all of my work over at WTMJ.com, where we cover all of our Wisconsin sports teams. Thank you for making Locked On Brewers part of your day each and every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Apple, Google, Spotify, all those terrific apps, as well as over on YouTube. Just go to that search bar, type in Locked On Brewers, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, get notified when we go live. And if you could do me a favor, drop a thumbs up on our videos. We will greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate that. Wow, what a bounce back performance today by the Brew Crew. A 10-2 victory over the Mariners, back at 20 games over 500. And the cherry on top for the Brewers this afternoon is that the Cubs lost to Kansas City by a final of 8-4. So the Brew Crew back in front in the National League Central. We'll talk about that, but it has really been interesting that this team continues to just be responsive. We mentioned relentless. I mean, they just continue to get knocked down and they bounce right back up. And just it's remarkable to see. It is clearly a team, ran by manager Pat Murphy, who they had completely taken, the mental aspect of him and how he wants to manage a team and have taken that to the field and applied that to other teams. And like we have talked about so many times with this Brewers team, how many different people that cover other teams that maybe don't see the Brewers all the time. And the one thing they always say is just take it easy on us. And that's exactly what this Brewers team did not do today out there in Seattle against Luis Castillo, who got the start for the Mariners. Again, the Brewers winning 10-2. We'll get into your thoughts, your reactions, your celebrations as the Brewers get back into the win column after losing 1-0 on Tuesday evening, snapping their 11-game win streak. They bounce back this afternoon out there in Seattle, finishing the road trip 5-1. And that's a you talk about coming out of an All-Star break, really going into the All-Star break and the way that you were dominating the All-Star break, prior to the All-Star break, winning 7 in a row. And you come out of the All-Star break and you have a 2-city road trip, one in Los Angeles, the team that just won the World Series not too long ago. And you completely dominate them in that series, winning all 3 games. And then, all 6, prior to the All-Star break, the 3 games in Milwaukee. And then you go up to Seattle. And I understand that Seattle's not on the level probably of where LA is right now, but the Seattle team was playing good baseball. Prior to the series with the Brewers, Seattle had won 5 out of their last 6 games, including in that was a 3-game sweep of the Detroit Tigers, who the Brewers are in a race for at the top of the Major League Baseball standings. But it was an interesting performance today by the Milwaukee Brewers. Again, a bounce back 10-2 victory. Your scoring summary today brought to you by our wonderful partners over at Monarch Money. Once again, another name in the Brewers lineup who's fairly, not new, has been up here before, but Tyler Black getting on base early in the second inning. Blake Perkins would drive him in with a double to left field. That would give the Brewers a 2-0 advantage. Then Seattle would respond in that second inning. So a good response from Seattle in that second inning. They would plate 2 runs. That would make it a 2-2 ball game. And that would take us to the 4th inning. And for me in this one, in the turning point in the Brewers 10-2 win.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Time and time again, this team has continued to just respond. It may not have been, right after that second inning where Seattle tied the game, but Ortiz would single, Terrain would reach on an infield single, William Contreras would have a single, Tyler Black would eventually single. That was later in the 5th. But this team in the 4th inning, able to quickly respond for Quinn Priester after he gave up 2 runs in the second inning as the game was tied, 3 in the 4th inning for our Brew Crew. That would give them the 5-2 lead. And again, as we mentioned, Tyler Black, who a guy that has been up here, who has fought injuries, is now kind of back, getting some playing time at first base this afternoon, would single to center in the 5th inning. That would give the Brewers a 6-2 lead. Jackson Chourio in the 6th inning, extending his hit streak to 17 games now for Jackson Chourio. Just a remarkable set of, stretch of games here for Jackson Chourio. He would single to right in that 6th inning. That would give the Brewers a 7-2 lead. Terrain in the 7th would later double. That would give the Brewers a 9-2 lead. 2 runs would plate for the Brew Crew, and then William Contreras in that 7th as well. The meat of the order for the Milwaukee Brewers today, absolutely fantastic. William Contreras, 3 for 5. Bryce Terrain, 3 for 5. Jackson Chourio, 2 for 5. Isaac Collins, 2 for 5. And the start today from Quinn Priester, 9-2 now on the season. And we did this a couple games ago, and I know this is going to sound like a little bit of a cop-out here before we get to all of your thoughts and your reactions, but the player of the game today, 10-2 win, can go in a couple of different ways, but we're going to give it to 2 Brewers players today after the 61st win of the season.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Look, when you go 7 innings and allow just 2 runs, you strike out 6 batters. The big thing for Quinn when he first got to Milwaukee, if you go back after that trade, and a lot of criticism followed that trade, was that his control was kind of sporadic, and he was walking a lot of batters and extending his pitch count higher than it should have been and extending innings longer than they should have been. Has not been the case for Quinn. 9-2 record for Quinn Priester, gets the win today. He's 1A for your player of the game. A dominant performance, 6 hits allowed over just those 7 innings. He's been one of my favorite players to watch, not only because anytime a player receives a lot of criticism in a trade that we haven't seen yet, I automatically start rooting for that player. And this one is an example of more recently of Quinn Priester, because when Matt Arnold made that trade, it felt like every single Brewers fan absolutely despised the trade. So it automatically put my attention to watch Quinn and get here under this pitching coaching staff for the Brewers and Chris Hook, and the wonderful job that he does, and Jim Henderson, and the way this Brewers team is able to bring the best out of these guys. And that's exactly what we have seen now for Quinn Priester. Now you go all the way back, really off the top of my head, maybe early May for Quinn was his last bad start. And I think it was the game against the Cubs. And since then he has been absolutely fantastic. Ninth win this afternoon, 7 innings pitch. He gets 1A honors of the player of the game. And on the offensive side for the Brew Crew, I got to go with Bryce Terrain. On base today 4 times was Bryce. It is a really good sign if the Brewers, at the same time they get Sal Frelick back here in a few days, can get Bryce Terrain going at the plate. Now, he struggled on Tuesday. Everybody offensively struggled on Tuesday against Logan Gilbert, rightfully so. He's a great pitcher. They only had 2 hits all game, so everybody kind of struggled. Bryce Terrain had a nice bounce-back performance as well. I mentioned him in the scoring summary. 3 for 5 this afternoon. Drove in 3 runs. Bryce Terrain did with that double off the wall, and scored twice himself. So it was good to see Bryce at the top of the order get things going for the Brewers. Good thing for this offense. And again, when you only have a couple of hits and you get shut out and you lose a game 1-0, how do you respond? How do the Brewers respond? And like we have seen throughout the course of the 11-game win streak, is that when another team punches them in the mouth, they get right back up and they fight back and they respond. And that's exactly what happened today. After they scored early on Luis Castillo, Seattle would eventually tie it. The Brewers pounced on that after that second inning. They poured in 8 runs and 17 hits, guys. 17 hits, 10 runs, and no home runs. So I understand, once again, that people are pounding the table for that power bat, and rightfully so. It would look incredibly awesome if you had a power bat in the middle of this lineup. But the way that this team is able to produce runs without the long ball is really some of the best baseball in Major League Baseball. Now, the record will obviously indicate that as well, but it's just a really, really fun team to play, it's probably not a fun team to play right now. It's a fun team to watch because of the way that they're able to put a lot of pressure on opposing pitchers, put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. And when they're at the top of the game, like we're seeing right now, when you're able to hit 17 times today en route to scoring 10 runs, and the way that they're set up from a pitching point of view, we mentioned Quinn Priester's start, Jacob Mizorowski's been fantastic. Brandon Woodruff has been fantastic. Freddie Peralta has been fantastic. And the way defensively this team is set up too as well, where you lose a guy like Garrett Mitchell, unfortunate, but then you insert a guy like Blake Perkins and you really don't miss a beat, or you have Andrew Vaughn at first base. And the next day you have Tyler Black, who made some nice defensive plays at first base this afternoon as well. So a good performance, a good bounce back victory for the Brewers. And I think the cool thing was offensively for this team today, it was simple, and it's things that they didn't do in the early part of the year, but they just put the ball in play, right? JP Crawford at shortstop for Seattle making a few errors, but you put the ball in play. You get guys in scoring position and you put the ball in play, and good things tend to happen. We were talking about it. I can go back all the way to the end of April in that series against San Francisco. And I don't know why the series sticks out for me for a few different reasons. Offensively, it was stressful, but defensively, they had a lot of errors in that series as well. But the Brewers on a handful of those games, and I think it was a 4-game series where they lost 3 out of 4, had starting pitching on the ropes early, and they just weren't able to cash in because they're striking out with guys in scoring position. They're not being able to move guys over in a hit and run situation, and certain things happen. They were 8 for 18 with runners in scoring position today. The Brewers were 7 runs they scored today. 7 out of the 10 runs they scored today all came with 2 outs, guys. Like that's an incredible performance for this Brewers team offensively, and it's a good sign going forward. And it's not, is the luck going to run out? Because of the way that they're able to do it, and what we've seen over this stretch of, now they've won 12 out of their last 13 after losing yesterday, is they have won these games in different ways. It hasn't been the same way, right? They're not hitting 4 or 5 home runs and scoring 12 runs a game. They're doing it with their pitching. They're doing it with their relief. They're doing it with their offense. They're doing it with their managerial decisions at the right time. So that's the cool thing to see. That's why I think this is something that they can consistently win by. And I understand the need and the desire for that big bat in the middle of the lineup. And we'll find out here in about a week or so, what that's going to, if that's going to happen here. But certainly I think going forward, this is sustainable for the Brewers. A 10-2 victory over the Mariners. Your thoughts, your reactions coming up after this. Today's Locked On Brewers postcast is brought to you by our wonderful partners over at Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? And with Monarch Money, it finally can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's more than just a budgeting app as well. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and all of your spending in one simple place. So in addition to managing your money, you're going to start building wealth, and everything is in one app. It is super easy to manage your day-to-day, and you can see everything right there with one click. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com, and you get 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Once again, that code is LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. A beautiful bounce back victory for the Brew Crew in Seattle. This one, a 10-2 win over the Mariners, 61-41 on the season. Have now won 5 straight series. Things are pointing in the right direction. They're starting to get healthy. The Cubs dropping 2 out of 3 to Kansas City, helping the Brew Crew stay atop the National League Central after a loss on Tuesday night to the Mariners in Game 2, a 1-0 loss, a tough one, certainly, but a great sign for this Brewers team to bounce back. Your thoughts, your reactions, your celebrations. We begin with our everydayer, Jason. Great way to bounce back, crew. Priester pitched solid pitching once again, and everyone contributing in the hits column. Great to see Myers finish the game off, too. I thought that was a fantastic decision by manager Pat Murphy to get Tobias Myers the last 2 innings of this game, and he looked good, 3 strikeouts and only allowed the 1 hit. So it was nice for Tobias, who was up here earlier, went back down, battled some injuries, has kind of had a roller coaster type season, to see him come in and a game that the Brewers had well in hand to secure a couple of good innings and some work up back in the major league. So it absolutely was. That's a great point there by Jason. Everydayer landed. Hope the Cubs enjoyed their 24 hours in first place. This is going to be a summer I think a lot of us are going to remember, and it's going to go one way or another. Unfortunately, I think it's obviously going to come down. I think the Cardinals are just sputtering out of control. The Reds are very up and down, and we all know the Pirates are a lost cause. But this is going to be one. This has a 2018-esque feel to this race with Chicago, and it certainly can, change, right? The Cubs right now, rumor is Eugenio Suarez is also a name that they're on, have on their radar. So the Cubs are not going to sit back at the trade deadline. I think they're going to be players in this one. I think that, neck and neck with the Brewers. You got the Cubs coming up next week, a 3-game series at American Family Field. You have a very tough stretch if you're a Brewers fan in August, where you have 19 games in 18 days. That includes a handful of games at Wrigley Field. So it is going to be a very, memorable end of summer into fall run here between the Chicago Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers after Craig Counsell left the Brewers and hasn't really performed up to expectations if you're a Cubs fan. But certainly this year will definitely be interesting. Dominic over on YouTube, back to winning like we've been doing the best. Go Brew Crew. Yeah, it felt great. Again, a responsive performance, a relentless performance, 17 hits. I mean, that was the Brewers looked a little angry today. I'll just say that at the plate. The Brewers looked a little angry today at the plate, and they certainly were probably not thrilled with the 1-0 loss. They probably weren't thrilled with Ryan Blakeney behind the plate last night as well. So they definitely took out their frustrations on the Mariners en route to their 61st win of the season. Harley Everydayer over on YouTube. Great win and response to last night's loss. Another series win in the books. Go Brew Crew. Andrew over on YouTube. Got to love this comment. We got to get to the burgers comment. He says, I made my own burgers in the 6th. They tasted great. New streak started. Win, lose, or draw. These Brewers are entertaining. Go Brewers, go. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. And I'm biased, obviously, as you guys know. I live in my hometown is Milwaukee, but I've always, Brewers are my favorite team, but I haven't covered another team and don't watch other teams as closely as I do the Brewers. But I think it'd be very hard for another person to convince me that there's a more fun team to watch than this Brewers team. It's America's team, right? They're built, they're not bought. A bunch of, again, I'm using Pat Murphy's term, average Joes. Pat Murphy used that term, average Joes that just come in and do their work. And there's an article written, talking about the friendship and how this team has kind of built their winning ways because of how close they are. And that's, I think, the fear amongst Brewers fans that want a big trade or want a big splash is that you don't want to mess that up. And maybe they don't have to. Maybe it's in a couple of names in the prospect land, but it is. Brandon Woodruff talked about it on MLB Network today that they're just super close. They come in, they do their job. They're not flashy names. They're not flashy superstars, and they have the camaraderie and the friendship that maybe other teams just don't have. Everydayer Nick, you can't keep a good crew down. I'm so confident on getting a bat. Yesterday's game should be why they should, and today showed me why it doesn't make sense. I don't envy Matt Arnold. Great comment. Yeah, he's got a tough job. He certainly has a tough job and a good job. Like, it's a good problem to have, because now you're talking about, do I make a trade to help push this team to a World Series, or do I not make a trade so I don't ruin helping push this team to a World Series? So Matt Arnold definitely is going to, maybe having some sleepless nights out there at American Family Field, but it's certainly going to be interesting in what this Brewers team does going forward. Everydayer Jack on the YouTube chat. Everydayer here. I live in Seattle and I'm a massive Brewers fan. Milwaukee fans were represented well at T-Mobile Park. So fun to see. I believe it was game 1. I think, it's game 1 where the Brewers won 6-0. You could audibly hear the Go Brewers chant through the television broadcast. So, Jack, you are absolutely right. And I feel like we're going to dip into another sport here, but I feel like Seattle, there's a lot of Packers fans there, because when the Packers played Seattle, if you remember, I believe it was a Sunday night game or a Monday night game, you could hear the Go Pack Go chant in that stadium as well. So Brewer fans travel well. There's fans everywhere. I used to travel around the country. There's fans everywhere, certainly, that represent the Brewers, the Packers, all that. So yeah, they were represented well. You could definitely see them. That plenty of live shots with Brewers fans in attendance. Everydayer Jaden, we're developing talent now at the major league level. Priester is a stud, and then guys like Black come up and immediately perform. The organizational depth right now is crazy. Tyler Black today, 2 for 5, just comes in, boom. Don't skip a beat with Andrew Vaughn on the bench. I mean, it is. It's almost like you get confused on who is who and where is, who's coming up. Like, there's guys everywhere. Like, there's so much starting pitching. We haven't even we've talked about Nestor Cortez. We've mentioned Gasser, who looked fantastic last year, is on a couple of rehab assignments already. So these guys, this is just a great problem to have. That's why we're a lot of people. I can see the argument of, well, let's spend some of these prospects and these up and comers or guys that have sort of proven themselves, like a Tobias Myers, and maybe go out and acquire that bat. But it's again, it is going to be interesting because it feels like that Eugenio Suarez is going to be a bidding war. It's really hard outside of Cal Riley right now to see who's swinging a better bat in all of Major League Baseball outside of Suarez. So what he's doing right now is remarkable, but I think what he's going to garner in a bidding war amongst teams that are reportedly already interested in him, and that includes right now 3 teams that I've been told: Chicago, New York, and Seattle, a team that the Brewers just played. Seattle's kind of one of those teams that might have a little bit more pressure, like the Cubs, right there at the top of the National League Central, top Major League Baseball. The Yankees have a plethora of talent already on their roster. Will likely probably, be there at the end, come playoff time as well. So maybe Seattle is willing to overpay. And that's the thing I'm most worried about when it comes to Suarez, as Steven reminds us on YouTube that it's our daily reminder to go get him. I think that, his performance right now is going to garner a big package in my opinion. I don't know exactly what that is. I don't know. Arizona's in a weird spot because of the expanded playoffs. Teams are waiting a little bit longer to like kind of the last minute, where you knew if you weren't into it, prior to the expansion of the playoffs, that you could, start talking and making deals happen a little bit quicker. So teams are waiting a little bit longer. I mean, Arizona's, a very tough division, so they're not going to be there in for the division. The wild card is extremely tough as well. I don't think anybody here is saying that Arizona is going to get to the playoffs, but they may be believing that they're going to wait until the final minute to kind of get things going, and then maybe we'll see what happens with the bidding war for Suarez. Ace over on YouTube: I do not think they need a bullpen arm either, honestly. Once they are healthy, some of those starters can go to the pen, including the Miz, to help limit his innings. Yeah, we probably will see a lot of what we saw last night from Jacob Mizorowski. And Pat Murphy had talked about it. He pitched a total of 97 innings a year ago. He's at 93 2/3 today, or 92 2/3, today after last night's start. So they're going to be careful with Miz. So we might see a lot of starts where he goes only 3 innings or 4 innings. And that might just be something we see, but that's the benefit of having a guy like we saw today with Tobias Myers, or a guy like we saw last night with DL Hall. Lots of good problems to have right now if you're a Brewers fan. I mean, you obviously want to go out and win games and make that splash, but this Brewers team is set up for success, most certainly. A couple more comments here before we wrap the things up on the show. Jason over on YouTube: yesterday's game showed one power bat does make the difference in a pitching duel game, but more often than not, we have a team now where everyone gets involved. I've been on the fence, Jason, where I've been pounding the table saying I think this team, I started off before, in the beginning of the win streak, saying they were one bat away. I slowly transitioned to I don't want to screw anything up. Does a bat, and this is a question we'll end with, and I'm curious your guys' thoughts, and you can drop a comment. Does a bat in the lineup, if you don't have to give up a piece of your team right now, right, and you're giving up somebody in, let's say in Nashville or Biloxi or, Appleton or something, where it's not going to affect this current team, would a bat help infuse and relieve a little bit of pressure throughout the rest of the lineup? So would Yelich feel a little less pressure? Would William Contreras feel a little less pressure? Would Jackson Chourio feel a little less pressure? And would that elevate them to new heights? It's hard to get to any new heights. I mean, they're the best team in baseball as it stands right now, and that includes after a 10-2 victory over the Mariners out there in Seattle. The Brewers will return home, a 6-game homestand. The Marlins and Cubs on deck, and we'll talk about all of it, including after Friday night's game. My thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in. Oh, thank you as always for making Locked On Brewers part of your day. Remember, wherever you get podcasts, we are free and available. Just go to the search bar, type in Locked On Brewers, hit that subscribe button as well over there on YouTube, hit that notification bell, hit that thumbs up on the videos, and we will discuss each and every Brewers game on the Locked On Brewers postcast. My name is Brandon Snide. You can follow me on X at Brandon_Snide. Follow all of my work over at WTMJ.com. And like always, Win, lose, or draw, the Brewers get back into the win column, and boy, does it feel good to talk about a win after a tough 1-0 loss. This one 10-2 over the Mariners, where they take 2 out of 3, and the Cubs lose. We end this evening on atop the National League Central. We'll talk to you guys again on Friday night. No game on Thursday, so we'll talk to you on Friday. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.